Alright guys, welcome back to another Fortnite video, and in this one, this is going to be a very fun video because we're going to be going through a bunch of things that most of you probably didn't even know existed in Fortnite at one point or another. As you guys can probably tell from the title and the thumbnail, we are going to be going through a bunch of things that only the true OG players will remember. And I'm talking about stuff like skins that were removed over 6 months ago, removed items, removed parts of the map. So this video is also kind of like a quiz, a test to see just how OG you are. So be sure to watch through all of these and comment how many of them you learned or how many you knew. If you knew all of them, you're a true OG player, and I'd say if you knew like half of them, you've been around for a long time. But if you don't know like any of them, you're probably a new player, and there's nothing wrong with that. But yeah guys, if you enjoyed today's video, be sure to hit that like button down below. Always helps me out so much, and you guys are the best. And along with that, comment your favorite part of Fortnite history, whether or not it was like the Season 2 Black Knight, which is my personal favorite, or stuff like that, or something you want them to bring back. But without further ado, let's jump on into it here with the first thing I want to go through, which is a tough one. Okay, we got to start off strong with one that was removed, I want to say over 6 months ago. Was it 6 months already? I don't know guys, but I'm talking about friendly fire. That is right. If you guys were not around for this time, it was different. It was almost like a different way of playing the game because it was so crazy. If you don't know what friendly fire is, it's basically if you were in a squad, you could do damage to your teammates if you shot them by accident, which I know what you guys are thinking. That sounds like a very big problem, and it honestly was. If you did solo fills with like random people, you had like 60 to 40% chance of actually surviving, considering your teammates would always just like light you up just to steal your stuff. But it was super interesting. You had to be crazy careful, especially with like rocket launchers and grenade launchers, because if you accidentally shot a rocket launcher towards somebody on the enemy team and your teammate was in there like with a shotgun, you could knock them down as well. So it made for some interesting stuff, but there was also a ton of problems. Obviously the team killing was a huge problem. That was the main issue with it, but it also made you play a little bit slower, a little bit more careful. You couldn't use all the tactics that you wanted to, but overall it was a very crazy time. I'd be interested to see like a limited time game mode with friendly fire turned on, because it did switch things up quite a bit. Now why did they then remove it? Well, it was pretty obvious. They wanted to stop people from eliminating their teammates when doing fill. It happened so much that they had to stop it, and honestly friendly fire didn't add that much tactical play to it. It was kind of fun, but nobody complained when they removed it, and honestly it feels way better now than it did back then, so who knows. But as for the next one here, this is one that I think more of you guys will know about, but even if you do know about it, it's very likely that most of you never even got to experience it. Now, what am I talking about with this one? Well, it is a game mode, and can you guys guess what it is? I am talking about the Close Encounters game mode. That is right, guys. The game mode in Fortnite history that has the record for being up for the least amount of time. I believe it was only up for like a few hours before they took it down. And actually, I believe it went up like a few times, but it was never up for that long. So we'll talk about why they removed that and if it'll ever come back. But either way, it was super annoying because the people that did get to play it said that it was one of the funnest limited time modes that they've ever played, which is unfortunate because even I didn't get to play it. Now, in case you didn't get to play it either, what exactly was Close Encounters? Well, as you might be able to tell, it was basically shotguns and jetpacks. That was the main draw of it. I'm sure there were other items like impulse grenades, some items like other grenades and stuff like that, probably traps, but mainly shotguns and jetpacks. Sounds kind of fun, doesn't it? Well, apparently Epic Games decided to remove it because people were building sky bases in it, which doesn't make much sense, but obviously in the game mode, since you couldn't really shoot down sky bases and since jetpacks were like everywhere, it encouraged more sky bases. So in like the later circles, there were a ton of buildings in the air. But the thing about that is apparently it made it super fun because it became like sky base wars. If you saw somebody building up, you had to build up as well to try and like get to them, and it created some of the most unique moments in Fortnite. But apparently that is why Epic Games removed it. They said at one point, like the last time they talked about this game mode, that we heard your feedback about Close Encounters and we'll be evaluating the effect sky bases have on this LTM, which is weird because I looked at this at the time and like nobody was saying anything. Nobody was complaining about this limited time mode. So who knows who exactly they were listening to, but it's kind of unfortunate that many of us didn't even get to experience it and have fun with those bases up in the air. I think that would have been a ton of fun. Now moving on to the next one here, this is one that is an item and probably one of the more recently removed items, but still a ways back. Half of you will probably know this, half of you probably won't, but the smoke grenades. One of the more interesting additions to the game because it didn't do damage to anybody like the stink bomb does now, but instead it was a purely tactical item, which we don't really have much of besides like impulse grenades. And I'm not going to go out and say that it was super useful and that they should bring it back because it was such a high tier item that you had to pick them up every time you found them, because that's simply not really true. They were all right, but only in very specific scenarios. Like if somebody was up on a hill, you could throw smoke bombs at them to obscure their vision and try and get in closer. On top of that, if you were getting shot at, you could throw them at your feet and use it as a way to sort of retreat, maybe build a quick base and heal up. Stuff like that. It wasn't anything that was super insane. And honestly, guys, the stink bomb is kind of the reiteration of this now that I'm thinking about it. I mean, you can still use smoke bombs to obscure people's vision. Now, I don't think it's as big of like a cloud of smoke as the smoke bombs had, but it still can be used for that purpose if you really need to. And since the stink bombs also damage players, it sort of has more uses than the smoke grenade. So I don't think they'll be bringing it back anytime soon, unless it got like a super buff and it could cover up like way more and be even more useful. But either way, for those of us who did get to try it out months ago, it was fun to use to at least like troll your teammates. Yeah, that's like the only way I used it, to be honest. Keeping it going here with a true OG fact, or whatever you want to call it, that is from a super long time ago, like close to the beginning of the game. This actually comes from a video of mine that I posted a long time ago. I think my first Fortnite video ever, which is a funny moments video and is kind of embarrassing to watch now. It's still a funny video, but I was just such a noob at the game back then. Seeing myself take like 10 seconds to put up like 3 ramps is it's a little bit rough. But yeah, I noticed that one of the things that changed is the grenade icon. It's definitely a small one, guys, but it is kind of funny that they didn't have a picture of the grenades, but instead a little icon for the grenades itself, and it was a gray icon. Nothing too crazy, but it's pretty interesting. Also along that, I guess you can add with it that the gray pump back from way back when. That by itself is kind of odd to see as well. But yeah, a lot of this icon stuff changed. I feel like there's another item that had an icon like this, but I couldn't find an image of it and couldn't quite remember. So if you guys remember, leave a comment down below. But were you guys there for the gray pump and the OG grenade icon? I'm curious to see. But moving on to one that has to do with the map itself and a change that was made to the map a little while ago. It was at least a few months ago that this change was made, but I'm talking about the shrines on the map. So I know a lot of you were here for these, but let's just reminisce for a second. So if you guys are brand new to the game and didn't know what the shrines were, basically it was a limited time thing on the map itself, kind of similar to how they added the birthday cakes recently, but as places where you could find extra loot. But the shrines were for like Chinese New Year or something like that. But there were these buildings right here and they had a ton of chests in them, as well as some ammo boxes, and there were like 10 of these around the map, and a lot of the time people just went to these on their own. In fact, now that I'm thinking about it, they were very similar to these stone heads in terms of like having random little locations for loot. But yeah, it was a very cool thing because it switched up like where exactly you would want to go, because these could get you a ton of good weapons and items if you were able to find them unlooted in the middle of your matches. So yeah, it was definitely a very cool feature. But now for one of the biggest ones that I want to talk about with you guys that is a true OG thing, because it has to do with removed skins from the game and stuff like that, and something that I honestly myself forgot about because it happened so long ago. But I'm talking about the removed default skins. That's right, guys, they made this change super secretly a very long time ago, early on in Fortnite, probably like season 1 or even before that. But unlike how the default skins right now all look similar in their clothing styles, they all have like the green and tan, or for the most part along those lines. Well, in the past it was actually way different for the default skins. You had ones with camos, some with orange, some with red. Like this one right here, you can see the Despacito guy, as I like to call him for some reason. He had this like urban camo with a little bit of orange on him, which was honestly super dope. I mean, just look at that. That's a type of skin that I think you would see in the shop nowadays, and I don't think you can buy this one. Maybe they did add it as one you can buy or something similar, but either way, back then it was one of the default skins. On top of that, like as you can see here, you had an orange shirt instead of the original one, the green one, which I remember back then was an annoying thing because who would want to wear a bright orange shirt? It basically made you way easier to spot before the times of like the glowing omega and stuff like that. So we did always complain about that. But like you also have this one right here, which is a red version of the skin, and I'm not even sure what he's wearing. He almost has like armor on, but it was way more red. On top of that, you also had green skins, which looked pretty similar to the ones we have now, but like this one had camo, which honestly looks a lot cooler than the current default skins we have. And I think there were a couple of other ones, but those are the ones that I could find from like my archived videos. So why then did they change these default skins? Well, there's a couple of theories I have. The first of which is that this was before the item shop came out, so that when the item shop did come out, they wanted to push people buying skins, so they made the default ones a little more basic and boring and the same. same, and instead you'd have to spend V-Bucks on them. On top of that, I think it was just to make the default skins a little more consistent, because these ones were like incredibly different. You wouldn't really be able to easily track what your teammate's skin was, and sometimes it would just like throw you off a little bit. So those are the reasons I think they changed it, but either way, they were some actually pretty cool skins. But after that, let's talk about a weapon that was pretty recently changed and is kind of along the same lines as the gray pump, but the tactical SMGs. And there's technically two OG tactical SMGs. There's this one right here, which was kind of the skinnier variant, and then there was this one over here, which was the more bulked up variant, and usually came in like, I think, epic rarity and blue rarity. But back to the first one, this one is technically in the game still. They just sort of decided to reskin it and slightly change the stats. It's the sort of MP5 looking SMG without the silencer, but this current version works pretty much the same as the old tactical SMG. They come in pretty much the same variants and have pretty similar stats. On top of that, you also had the bulkier version, which was usually epic rarity or I believe blue rarity, and honestly it was pretty good. Definitely not as good as the SMGs right now, but at the time one of the best SMGs by far. Either way though, do you guys remember these? Did you try them out? Were they fun to use? I'm curious to see just how many of you guys liked them or didn't like them. But as for the next one on this list, this is another very interesting one, but I'm talking about the old lobby screens. It was way different. Now I believe they kind of go back to this every once in a while, like outside of special events. Obviously right now we're in the Paradise Palms desert area lobby screen, but when it's not a special one, it goes back to this sort of default kind of boring area. Now on top of that is also like the leaderboard screen, because as you can see here, and this was back towards like the very start of Fortnite, but you can see that there was only a lobby screen, a leaderboard screen, and a stats screen. At this time there wasn't even an item shop. So yeah, like going to the leaderboards part, you can see that it's not even there. It says coming soon, and then for the stats page, it was pretty different from what it is now. And as you can see, I hadn't even played a solo game at this time. Man, we are going way back. But you can see the slight differences and how much different it was from now. But yeah, guys, that is going to be the last one for this video. Be sure to comment down below how many of them you were there for or what you learned, and be sure to subscribe for more videos like this coming up in the near future. On top of that, guys, you can check out my previous videos here, such as on the left, going through some crazy, satisfying builds and things in Fortnite, and then on the right, a theory about how Road Trip will destroy the map. But other than that, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one.